Robert Ferringo here, and today we're talking NBA handicapping with Nolan Patrick of Strike Point Sports. You can find both mine and Strike Point Sports NBA handicapping service exclusively at docsports.com. That's docsports.com. I'd like to mention that we at Doc Sports are celebrating our 50-year anniversary this year. That's right, founded in 1971. It has been 50 years for Doc Sports, and to help you celebrate, we are offering you $60 in free service, basically. Click the link below, bang on that, sign up, get your $60, and you can use that to buy picks from any handicapper in any sport that we offer on the site. So there, I just gave you $60 free. You're welcome. So, okay, Nolan, Strike Point Sports, coming off a big 7-unit NBA winner on Monday with Utah. My first question is a simple and an obvious one. Will the Jazz ever lose again?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know if I can say no, they won't. I mean, just watching the Jazz, it's funny. Philadelphia got out to an 18-10 lead, and I think they had hit 8 of their first 12 shots, and the Jazz just methodically chipped away. You know, one of my favorite basketball players of all time, Joe Ingles, just started to dominate like he does. And Utah just chipped away. And then lo and behold, about 10 minutes later, it's a tie ball game. And then all of a sudden, Utah is up 10 points. And that just, it's what they do. It's funny. I looked at a stat last night on the Utah Jazz specifically, as I've been on them 3 straight plays. And something that I really liked was, I believe they had 21 wins going into last night, 22 wins going into last night, and only three of their wins have been by less than 8 points. And I mentioned 8 because that spread last night was around 7.5, 8 points, and only 3 have been less than 8 points all season long.
Yeah, I mean, that's domination right there. But I got to ask you, how do you handle situations like this where you just have a team that's gone nuclear, okay, that is just completely hot right now? They are just winning game after game, covering spread after spread. I don't even know what their streak is at right now, but I know it's significant. What do you do in this situation? Are you just going to keep betting the Jazz until ride it till the wheels fall off? Do you get to a point where a team wins 8, 9, 10, 11 games in a row and you just say, okay, I know they're due for a loss, so I'm just going to step back, take my money and step back? Or do you try and jump out in front of that natural regression and maybe at a certain point say, okay, the books are overinflating these lines now the value is betting against them? How do you like to handle those situations?
To be honest, it's interesting that you asked that because I was just thinking something else. And you know, you and I have a past where we both lived in the Atlanta area for a long time. And it really reminds me of about, maybe 7 years ago when the Atlanta Hawks had that run where they won 60 games. And during that stretch, they covered something like 15, 16 games in a row. And it's funny because you and I talked at the beginning of that year that I said I really like the Atlanta Hawks. I like them this year. I think they're gonna do some great things. And during that big 15-game stretch, I hate to say it, I didn't bet on them once. Not one time did I take the Atlanta Hawks. I knew they were going to be good, didn't take them. But with the Jazz, even in the write-ups, you know, for anybody that follows Strike Point Sports, one of the first things you see in the write-up is, are the Jazz playing? Yes, we're taking them.
I did the same thing over the last weekend.
Yeah, but it's really this is going to be a big.
Are the Jazz playing today? Yes, we bet them. We win.
Right, and it's big because tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday, the Jazz have 2 games against the Clippers, both in LA. It's one of those new things this season where you get 2 straight games in a team's gym, and they're getting the Clippers in LA. Wednesday and Friday of this week. So that's going to be really interesting. I mean, I'll tell anybody out there, I will be on the Jazz on Wednesday. I absolutely will be on the Jazz on Wednesday, and I can't wait to watch that game to see how it goes.
Well, you mentioned about the 2-game series and giving me a good opportunity to segue here. So, all right, so Strike Point Sports, winning NBA season last year, up on the season, having a winning NBA season again this year. But if you go back and look over the last 12 months, we really see 3 distinctly different NBA betting scenarios and situations, right? So 12 months ago in February, it was just typical NBA, full stadiums,
Hmm.
regular NBA that we've known over the last few decades of betting it. Then COVID hits, we get the bubble in summer and in the fall, and that kind of sterilized environment. And that was a unique betting experience as well. And now we have kind of a hybrid of it's teams playing in their home venues, but there's not really fans, and you got these weird travel and scheduling situations, and there's availability issues for players testing positive COVID. So if you look at it, it's really three very distinct different things. Can you just talk about how you've handled those situations? What are some of the challenges of betting the NBA over the last 12 months?
Uh, it's funny because I really think I've started to focus, and it started in the bubble. It really started in the bubble. Last year before the bubble hit, before COVID hit, it was just business as usual. We have certain systems that we like, we have certain teams that we like, we have certain plays that we like, and we ran through that. And Strike Point Sports was pretty consistent throughout the year until the bubble. We were up going into the bubble. We had a strong year. So that was business as usual. When the bubble hit, and the Phoenix Suns are a perfect example of it, how all of a sudden a team that was eighth or ninth in the West just didn't lose. And what it came down to is the fifth, sixth, and seventh options on the team really started to play good basketball. And what it comes down to is those players are playing in the same gym night in and night out. These are some of the best basketball players in the world, whether they're LeBron James or whether they're Duncan Robinson for the Miami Heat. And you saw a guy like Duncan Robinson really get hot and start to help his team win basketball games. And you saw that with the Suns as well, with some of their middle tier players. You even saw it with TJ Warren with the Indiana Pacers. You saw guys get hot because they're playing in the same gym. I mean, I remember growing up, I used to see Robert Ferringo get hot in the local YMCA for an entire week because you're playing in the same gym night in and night out. And when guys do that, that's why you saw stretches of teams winning and covering every night. I remember we talked, are the Heat playing in the bubble? We're taking the Heat. And it's because guys like Tyler Hero, guys like Duncan Robinson, the unsung heroes, if you will, get hot because they're playing in the same gym night in and night out. Your LeBron James, your Jimmy Butler, your superstars, they're going to be superstars whether there's 25,000 people in the gym or whether there's no people in the gym. But now with no fans and playing in, comfortable environments that the guys are getting used to, they're going to just get better and better and better because they're not getting screamed at by the guy in the front row that's had 15 Bud Lights. That's not going to impact LeBron James, but it is going to impact a guy that, is trying to get minutes for his team or he's trying to keep a contract. That's when they're in your ear and they're yelling and screaming, it's human nature. It bothers you. When nobody's there, these guys that are just good basketball players are going to get better and better and better. So during the bubble, it was ride that hot team, ride that hot team. And you talked about the hybrid now. You're still seeing those middle tier guys playing way above their level. Look at a Jeremy Grant. I mean, he's averaging 24, 7, and 4, because he has no pressure right now. He's just playing basketball and utilizing his athleticism. Look at a guy like Bridges in Phoenix, who's all of a sudden averaging 15, 16 a game. Look at Darius Garland in Cleveland, who's starting to play really good basketball. It's those guys that aren't the superstars are now starting to carry their teams and helping them cover lines. And that's really what we're looking for now in the hybrid scenario.
So we've had 20, 30 games. We're a couple weeks out from the All-Star break. So we've had a chance to find a level with teams in the NBA. Okay, we kind of know who these guys are and who they're not going into this point. Who would you say, is there a couple teams out there that have surprised you, maybe overachieved, maybe they've been a little bit better than you expected them to be coming into this season?
I know I smile, and you're probably going to know the first team I'm going to name, but how about
I know exactly the first team you're going to say.
How about
They're
the
still
New York
terrible.
Knicks? I mean,
Yeah.
for years they've just been a doormat. But and you still can't get the consistent Knicks. You know, they beat the Jazz earlier in the year, they beat the Bucks earlier in the year, and then they get beat by the Cavs and the Pistons. You know, but the Knicks, I believe, right now as we speak, are 14-15. They're on the cusp of the playoffs. Julius Randle's coming off a 40-plus point night last night. You know, I can tell you what, the Knicks are 14-15 with no fans. If the Garden was packed night in and night out, I think you're looking at a team that's 5-6 games over 500. I really do. Thibodeau's got these young players playing well. Julius Randle's leading them. And, you know, it tugs at the heartstrings a little bit, but the Knicks are surprising. They really are. I love what they're doing, and I'm excited to see what they hold in the second half. The San Antonio Spurs, I believe they're 16-11 as we speak right now and leading the Southwest Division. I like what they're doing. And then stay in the South. I mean, unfortunately, both Southern divisions stink. The Southeast and the Southwest stink right now. But the Charlotte Hornets, they're 13-15, and they're in first place in the Southeast Division. You know, and Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier are doing great things there.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned the Knicks and the Spurs, who have been two of the best against the spread teams this year, two of the bigger surprises, two great coaches. You know, a lot of people just like to shoo coaching in the NBA, okay? It's all about the players. You can just roll the ball out. If you have the better players, you're going to win. And that gets more true as you get further into the season and further into the playoffs. But coaching still matters. Like, coaching can still compensate for a lot of things in the NBA. And I think that the Knicks and the Spurs are two perfect examples of it. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about Philadelphia? They have been kind of a surprise team for me. I was not expecting them. I know that they have a level of expectation because of their superstars that they have on their team, but they haven't shown it. They've been a really overrated, overvalued team the last couple of years. This year, they're not. They're number one in the East. They're playing really well. Is that surprising to you that it looks like they have kind of figured things out? Or do you think that they're still kind of fool's gold and the collapse is imminent?
Well, we talked at the very beginning about the very beginning of our video today about the Utah Jazz and the autoplay. When the 76ers play at home, that's almost an autoplay for me as well. When they play in their home gym, nobody beats them. But I will agree with you as far as the fool's gold thing, because when it gets to the playoffs, you've got to be able to win on the road. And Philly just, you know, 8 or 9 losses, I believe. And most of them have come on the road. They still really haven't figured it out. But Joel Embiid this year is playing more games. He's not sitting out as much as he has in the past. And for me, he's the MVP in the NBA right now. I mean, that guy night in and night out just puts numbers up that are phenomenal for someone his size. And I like Philly. And if they become the number 1 seed in the East, they're going to have home court advantage. And teams have not proven that they can beat the 76ers consistently on their home floor, but you got to win on the road, and they haven't proven it yet. But I do not think overall that they're fool's gold. I think right now they are the best team in the Eastern Conference, and I think that there's a value them a lot when they play on their home floor.
Okay, so we talked about the overachievers. Now, who are the underachievers? Who were you expecting to be better, both in the standings and against the spread, okay? Because, we love win-loss records here, but it's really about cashing tickets. So who has been kind of overvalued so far this season, and who have been your big underachievers, or teams that have really surprised you with how poorly they've played at the window?
I mean, there's three specifically that I almost get angry when I see the spreads that they're given, because they just haven't done enough consistently for me. The Brooklyn Nets, and I had talked with some other people about the Nets coming into this year. You know, you had the big names coming in, and it was really just Durant and Kyrie at the beginning, but I don't like what they're doing. I just don't. I mean, they're handed these big lines, these big spreads that they're supposed to cover, and a lot of times they don't. So I'm not impressed with the Nets. I was ready to fade the Miami Heat as well after last season. I was not high on the Heat coming into the year. unfortunately, Strike Point Sports didn't release any season win totals this year, and that was because of COVID, because you just could not plan for guys being out. Look at Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota and Jason Tatum in Boston. You just didn't know when guys were going to be out. So we didn't release any season win totals. Two, I can guarantee you, would have been under Nets and under Heat. And they're right. They are who we thought they were. And then the last one is, and it's funny because night in and night out, I look at the lines that this team is handed, and they're favored over teams that they shouldn't be, or they're underdogs versus teams that the line should be so much more, and it's the New Orleans Pelicans. What in the Lord's name are the New Orleans Pelicans doing? They're 6-point favorites over teams that they have no business being a favorite. One, they can't play any defense. Two, they don't, overall as a team, they don't shoot the basketball well enough. And they blow my mind when Vegas releases lines, and lo and behold, the Pelicans are favored again. Why?
Somehow it's the Zion factor, I feel like. Somehow it's something about that guy that draws interest and attention and has helped overinflate that team a little bit. And I think talking about New Orleans, I remember there was a couple of years ago at the draft, you staked your claim on a team that we'll get to in a minute, the Atlanta Hawks. Up and coming, You loved them. This was after Trae Young's rookie year. I liked the Pelicans. I liked everything that they had to do. One move that they made, though, that I did not like at all was them getting rid of Julius Randle, the night of the draft. And that has come back to haunt them. And right now, New Orleans has a problem, and it's Brandon Ingram, If you play fantasy basketball or you're betting daily fantasy, Brandon Ingram's your best friend. Guy puts up great numbers. But if you watch this team play, he just infects everyone around him. He's never met a shot that he doesn't like, and there's no chemistry and no cohesion in that New Orleans team because they don't have a facilitator. That's really their problem. And you mentioned your 3 underachievers, and I don't know if you're just being stubborn. You got to crow about your Knicks, but the Hawks didn't make your list as one of the big underachievers so far this year. What's going on with your Hawks?
Listen, it's tough. It's tough for people to admit they're wrong. It's not the easiest thing in the world, right? And they're still
not as difficult for us. We have to admit it every single day. We either win or lose our bet. So we should be well versed in admitting that we're wrong.
I don't know. They've gone through different stretches. They were playing great basketball at the start of the year. I don't know if you remember, but really early in the season, they played the Brooklyn Nets to a 145-141 basketball game. And that was such a fun game to watch. I couldn't imagine what that game would have been like with fans in the stands. It was just a phenomenal game. And then the Hawks, plodded along. Then all of a sudden, John Collins and Trae Young aren't getting along. And then there's ownership stuff, and then there's coaching issues. So there's some behind the scenes things. People on the team aren't happy with Trae Young, and I get it. When you have a guy that shoots the ball a lot, there's issues, and he's got some maturing to do, and I think that definitely can be an issue as well. And it is an issue there because you saw that when the Collins and Young stuff came out, Trae went 2 or 3 games in a row where he attempted less than 10 shots. That can't happen.
It's kind of, that's
like
pouty.
That's a temper tantrum.
That's like pouty baby stuff. Really.
Yeah, that's my son wants pizza for dinner, and I told him he's having macaroni and cheese, and suddenly he's not hungry anymore. You know what I mean? And that's what Trae Young did, and that's not going to win basketball games. And they have talent. They were hurt. They've dealt with injuries, but there's me making excuses for the Atlanta Hawks because I want them to be able to.
Here's the important thing. Do you think they are going to turn it around, or do you think that this is an opportunity for bettors? Just hop on the train and just bet against the Hawks. They're not a good team. They're overrated. They're overvalued, and they are going to continue to be overvalued. Because that's how I feel about the Pelicans. I do not see them turning a corner and all of a sudden, reaching that level that people expect them to. I think there are fundamental problems with the Pelicans, so that's a team that I'm going to be betting against the duration of the season. What do you think about the Hawks? Do you think that they're just waiting for a spark, or do you think, hey, they are who they are, make your money betting against them?
No, I mean, here you go. You're twisting my arm to say what I need to say. No, I would absolutely, if I had to choose, I'd say fade the Hawks. I don't think they're a good enough defensive basketball team. And as you get into the nitty gritty of the NBA season, I'm really excited to see they haven't even released the second half schedule yet. That's coming out pretty soon. But in the nitty gritty, when you got to win, and then when you get to the playoffs and you have to win, you've got to be able to make stops. And overall, they just can't defend. And they have some marquee names with your Trae Young. So they're going to catch some lines that they're not deserving of, like the Pelicans, and I'm going to fade them. I'm going to fade the Atlanta Hawks. I don't want to,
Okay.
but I'm going to.
Another interesting team that I actually am still holding out a little bit of hope that they've been one of the season's big disappointments and big underachievers. They are still overvalued at the window, but I'm still holding out a shred of hope is the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously Luka is a stud. Everyone saw what he was able to do in the bubble. This was a team that I felt like had some momentum coming into the season. They made some off-season changes. They lost a few shooters, added some more athleticism, but they have not played well. And this is another one of those teams that you look at their numbers every night, and they're favored against teams that I don't think that they should be necessarily. What's your take on Dallas? Is this a good buy low option? Or should we sell all of our Maverick stock like we have with the Hawks and the Pelicans and just start making money betting against them?
I think, though, you mentioned Luka, and he can carry a basketball team because he can do just so many things. So the Mavs are a little bit different than those two in my opinion. But even with Luka, if you think about when you're listening to sports talk radio or you check into ESPN, you're not hearing as much about Luka as you did the last 2 years. He's still doing his Luka thing, but in the bubble and before the bubble, he's the MVP. He's putting up numbers that are just blowing everybody's minds. And I feel like when I sign on to things, I'm not noticing really anything about him. So I'm not super impressed with the Mavs. I don't, and I think that there's other teams that are passing them by. The Phoenix Suns, for example, they're by the Mavs. There's those teams that the Mavs were even with that I think have taken a step above them. The only thing is I will bet them in certain spots when they're home, smaller lines, because they are a difficult matchup. Luka is a tough matchup. So when I see the Mavs as a big favorite, I'm not really jumping on that bandwagon. I'm not going to. When they're at home and they have a small line, I like them in that scenario. I do like the Mavs to get to the playoffs because, you see teams like the Houston Rockets that aren't going to be there anymore and a few others in that area. But I'm selling the Hawks. I'm selling the Pelicans. The Mavs are that team I'm going to hold on to in certain situations. When I go out to a bar, there's a certain shirt I might like to wear. That's the Mavs. I'm going to wear them when it fits right. When they fit the perfect spot, I'm going to bet them. But when I see a board and I see the Mavs, minus 5.5 at home against the Portland Trailblazers, my eyes go right by that game. I'm not going to consider it, or I'm going to jump onto Portland.
It's funny you mentioned Portland because they're another buy low team. I think next week when we do this show, a couple teams I want to get into in a little bit more in depth is Houston, and Portland is a team that's underachieved in my eyes so far this season. But I think that they're going to be a good buy low option. So, all right, moving on. What else are you looking at this week? Okay, I know that you like to look ahead. You like to kind of plot out and plan out your week when it comes to games and matchups and situations and things like that. So, what are some of the things that you're looking ahead to this week?
There's 3 games that I really am excited about. I already talked about 2 of them. I can't wait to watch the Jazz and the Clippers. I'm really excited to see, even tomorrow night, I'm really excited to see the Jazz, or Wednesday night, go into LA, play at LA, and then have to play them again on Friday. I'm really, really excited for that. And the other game, I believe it's Thursday, the Lakers and the Nets. And it's really disappointing that Anthony Davis got hurt. It really is. But
weird. Anthony Davis is hurt. Whoever saw that.
Yeah.
Whoever saw that.
Achilles injury too, which is tough. But I'm excited to see LeBron by himself, essentially. Oh, wait, sorry. Kyle Kuzma's there. Sorry. I'm really excited to see LeBron take on the Nets because, even though it's a regular season game just before the playoffs, just before the All-Star break, I'm excited to see how that game goes. I really want to see if LeBron just continues playing at his high level like he is, and if those three Nets guys in a big spot, big game, can get the job done.
What do you think the numbers are going to be for those games? Let's start with that Utah LA game. Where are you anticipating that number to come in
at? Well, should be Jazz minus 9.5. They beat everybody by 10 points. But
right.
No, I think
the Clippers probably will be favored, don't you think?
I was just going to say, I think the line opens Clippers 2.5, 1.5. I think it's going to be low. I really do. Because the Jazz, eventually Vegas had...
With Utah doing what they're doing, the books are not going to give them any more points than they have to. What do you think about that Lakers-Nets line? Where do you think that number is going to fall
in? I'd have to check. I'm sorry. I think it's in LA. I'm almost positive that game is in LA. I think even with no Anthony Davis, I think you're still looking at the Lakers minus 1.5. I really do. And I believe I'm going to be on the Lakers there. I don't like the Nets. It's going to be a play for Strike Point Sports. Probably not a big play, but it's definitely going to be one of our rated plays, and I'm going to be on the Lakers in that game. I don't like the Nets. I think this is a big just spot where the Nets don't get the job done, and I'm going to be on the Lakers there, and I think the Lakers are, just under a one-possession favorite in that game.
All right, there you go, folks. You heard it here first. All right, we're gonna wrap up there, but we will be back next week with Nolan Patrick of Strike Point Sports. Nolan, I want to say thank you for taking the time to talk some NBA with us. Good luck, continued success. Keep that winning season going, and everybody else, make sure you check back next Wednesday for another video with me, Robert Ferringo, him, Nolan of Strike Point Sports. Bang that link, get that free $60, and get on our NBA plays. So that's it for today. Carpe diem. Good luck.